Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Cary. Welcome to my show today. I am excited, folks, because I have on the line with me Mr. Cary Phillips, who has been speaking for 14 years professionally. The content he speaks on is very interesting. The first topic is how companies make money. Can't we all learn a little bit about that? The second one is leadership skills. His third one is called the power of the question. That really intrigues me. I want to hear about that as well. Cary speaks primarily in the U.S., although he has done some international speaking. And Cary, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
We're very happy to have you, Cary. So let's talk about your speaking business. Tell us about your speaking business. Who are you talking to? What are you teaching them?
I do a lot of work with companies, a lot with insurance companies, larger companies, Liberty Mutual, Allstate, although I do smaller companies as well. The workshop is how companies make money, how the employees fit in, what they can do to help. The idea being is that if the employees have a little bit more understanding, not only of their job, but how the business which they work in is profitable, it will help them in their career as well as help the company. So that's what we do.
Okay. And getting an employee to understand their place in the company, is that difficult or not?
It can be. The idea, though, is we do this simulation, for example, in the insurance industry, how an insurance company makes money. We get the various employees from the different disciplines. Now, this is very interesting because a lot of times the insurance industry is perceived to be has sort of a silo. That is, there is the underwriting department, there is the claims department, there is the investment department. But when we get all those people at the same table going through this simulation, it does increase the perspective of the individuals as to how what they're doing impacts the others. Quite frankly, the value of some of the other disciplines that they really didn't know too much about kind of gets them on the same page, if you will. As a result of that, it's opened some doors, if you will. We refer to that as team building, breaking down some of those silos. Those agents, they just give a policy to anybody that wants one. Those claims people just write checks. It's really not like that. Most people are doing their jobs, are absolutely trying to do it the best that they can. And once people not only understand how their role impacts the company, but learn how the other individuals, other employees, other disciplines impact the countries, it makes all of them far better in what they do. Interesting.
I used to run my dad's Lumberyard hardware store years and years ago, and it's just in a small town of 8,500 people. And we had the system whenever somebody would get done with an order, we'd send them out to the yard to get their lumber. And here we are writing a ticket, and we can type it up in the computer, print it out, $10,000 worth of lumber in probably 5 minutes. And we get it in our mind that, the guys out in the yard can just load it up that fast. And the yard foreman had to have him come inside and have a talk with his boss, yours truly, and tell him, look, you guys can write a ticket, and that never occurred to me. And so what you're talking about is killer useful information, I would think, for companies to know about one another.
Absolutely. And quite frankly, that story is so funny. We like to say there's no job so easy as the one you don't have.
Yeah.
Far too often, people don't have any appreciation of what other people have to do. And that is, we're just going to spring something on them at the last minute. That's why at ours, they have an idea. There is sometimes a little bit of a lead time that people need in order to do their jobs more efficiently and more effectively. That's a very funny story you told.
Well, it was an eye-opener. Now,
right.
when you're doing speaking, is it within a workshop environment or is it to a big audience? How does it work for you?
Mostly it's in a workshop environment. It can be anywhere from 24 to 120 on the workshops, depending on how we set it up and what the ultimate objective of our contact is at a particular company. Usually we do workshops under one of three banners, if you will, and that is awareness, appreciation, and action. A lot of times we do our workshop to give the participants a general awareness of how the company makes money, where they fit in, and what they can do to help. Several years ago, we were doing, if you will, I'd call appreciation workshops. When the economy wasn't quite as well, some business people were having to make very tough decisions. The workshop gave them a little better appreciation of how difficult it was for some of these people to continue to move forward in a very, very tough environment. So they did understand that it wasn't quite as easy to give out the bonuses, et cetera, in the tough economy. Sometimes we do our workshop for action. That is, some type of initiative that has been identified in a company. Could be an expense reduction initiative. There could be a new product rollout initiative, things of that nature. And they use our workshop to get that started. The idea that we have a fun, non-threatening workshop that gets people focused on the numbers. And then sometimes after we've done that, then they go in, have a second day, and get involved in the initiative. Now that everybody is focused on the numbers, we would call it creating a shared need as to the need to solve this problem, get everybody now working on the solution. So we do a lot of that. The workshop is also interesting because it does meet the three parts of adult learning. You know, one of it is relaxed alertness. That is, our simulation is very hands-on, but we have to have people relaxed. People over a certain age, some of them have an aversion to numbers. They've got it in their head that they can't understand the finances, when in fact they can. So we want them to be ready to learn. We want them to stay alert, but they've got to be relaxed so they don't get too intense about it. The second one is orchestrated immersion. That is, we, over a period of time during the workshop, we make it more and more involved, if you will. Initially, it's fairly simple, but they get immersed in the workshop. This is all that we do for them to get them understanding more about the business as the workshop continues. And the last one is active processing, the transfer of the lessons of the workshop into what they actually do. Because we've got to circle back after the simulation is over into real life so that they can practically apply some of the lessons of the workshop. Sometimes we'll do a PAC plan. We refer to it as a personal action plan. As a result of this workshop, I found out that I need to know more about A, B, and C, and therefore this is how I'm going to fill that gap. As a result of the workshop, I found out that we need to put more emphasis on this particular area of the business, and therefore here's my plan to do that. Because it's got to be practical, and so that's what we try to do in our workshop.
Okay. Now, when the workshop is that about how companies make money and leadership skills, or is that a totally different workshop?
Interesting, because it can be both. In our workshops, we do financial literacy and we do business literacy. Financial literacy is understanding the numbers. Business literacy is understanding how to influence the numbers. Henry Ford once said, there's a reason why accountants don't run my company. They keep score. However, if the finance people have a general understanding of how the business works, if the business people have a general understanding of how the finance works, it makes both of them far more valuable. We usually do on-site an electronic quiz about the finances of that particular industry, for example, the insurance industry. That allows us to gauge the financial acumen of the participants for that workshop, because we can ratchet the workshop up or down depending on skill set level.
Interesting.
If the people are a little farther along, then we may focus less on the financial mechanics and more on the business side of it. If they're not very far along, then we will focus more on the finance part of it and a little bit less on the business at the beginning. Because our workshop, we have done it as open enrollment. Anybody at the company can take our workshop all the way to the highest levels. Now, when we're doing it at the highest level of a company, we're facilitating more than teaching. That is, we're trying to get all the people in the room speaking together about it. but we can ratchet it up or down depending on skill set level. That way we're not talking over people's heads, or we're not talking under people's heads, underneath them.
Right. Now, do you find, like if you go in and you measure where they're at with financial versus business acumen, are companies sort of the same across the board, or is there a pretty very difference among them?
There's quite a bit of difference, especially if we do small businesses. A lot of times, nobody went into business to do income statements and balance sheets. They went into business because they had a great idea, a great product, or a great service. That's what they want to focus on.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, they've got to have a general understanding of how the finance works in order to support their business, to support the infrastructure, to support the growth of their company. Because if they don't do that, then it gets away from them. And that is, to your point, if people don't understand how the company makes business, your hardware store, then they have ordered more products, but they can't get it out. They can't handle their own success. As a result of that, people don't like the customer service. They stop doing business with them, and the business owner wonders what happened.
Right.
And so they need to understand that. The other thing at larger companies, here's something that you might find interesting. A lot of times they're outliers, but it's interesting on both sides of the spectrum. A lot of an outlier. Admittedly, it's an outlier, but let's say an agent. A lot of times, insurance agents, they may have no idea in which bucket these numbers go. And truth be known, they could really care less. They're just really, really good at writing business. They're just really good at that. Mm-hmm. What might surprise you on the other end is some finance people. They know exactly in which bucket the numbers go. They're not real clear where those numbers came from. Because a lot of times the finance people, although so valuable to the company, they don't actually touch the customer.
Right.
They don't actually, have that interaction with the customer. And sometimes there are some companies, if you will, they're white collar assembly lines. The people know their job. They're very, very good at their job, but they don't know how everything works together. And in fact, if you have just a couple of people that do that, and anything happens to them, or they decide to pursue other opportunities, then all that memory is gone. And that's why it is a good idea to have everybody there. Quite frankly, one of the things we really like and we stress at some of the workshop is to have the higher up executives in the workshop, because it is a relaxed environment and people get to see the executives in a more relaxed atmosphere. And therefore the conversations get a little bit more open. What we like to say sometimes about our workshop is, when you go fishing with your child, it's not about the fishing. That's why you get together. What happens is the conversations, the discussions, the better understanding. And sometimes with our workshop, we don't care really where the workshop goes. The ultimate objective is to take care of the client. And sometimes, sure, they're going through this exercise, but they're at around the table and they're talking to each other. And that's a huge part of it. Relationships, if you will, are either established or are developed as a result of that relationships. Then they find themselves talking a little bit more over lunch, etc. They're not quite as guarded in their conversations with the other employees. They get a better understanding. We're all headed in the same direction. It's really good that we cooperate. And now that I have a little bit better understanding of what you do, I won't order 4 tons of lumber and give you one day to load it. That's the
right.
idea.
Right. Awesome. Well, let's go to the power of the question. That really intrigues me.
Sure.
You say you give talks on that, so give us a little summary of what that's about.
Well, I am an attorney by background. I worked over in a federal court for 2 years, and then it was a private practice, and then worked for a reinsurance company for 15 years. In the law, if a case goes to an appellate court, there's a question that the appellate court is asked to solve. And quite frankly, that's true all over the place. You can call it a problem. You can call it an issue. You can call it a challenge. You can call it a concern. It's a question. And often when people start talking, what is the question? And when people do a better job of framing their questions and deciding what question they want to, what answer they need is determined by the question that they ask. For example, there are two questions the human brain should be asking over and over again. Those two questions are, what does this mean? Second question, how can I use it? And those questions need to be asked in that order. First, what does this mean? Then second, how can I use it? For example, I manage lawsuits for an insurance company. Let's say I called up an attorney that was handling a case for us, getting ready to go to trial. And I said, what do you think our chances of winning are? And he says, I think they're pretty good. So I approve his litigation plan, his trial plan. He goes out, does more depositions. He does more discoveries. 3 months later, $30,000 in legal fees later, I call him up and say, hey, when you said you thought we had a pretty good chance of winning that case, what did that mean? And then as a joke sometimes, I always ask anybody, is there anybody here from New York City? And if anyone raises their hand, I always say, if anybody from New York City tells you something is within walking distance, ask more questions, all right? Because they have an entirely different idea than we do in the Midwest.
Right.
So the whole idea is in the workshop, and quite frankly all the time, as a presenter, I get stories from my girls, my daughters, I get stories from my wife, I get stories from my friends. But when something happens or I have some type of an emotional response to something that is said, I study that and say, what just happened here? What does that mean? Okay, that's a good lesson. How could I use that? I could use that in the presentation by talking about this, talking about that, etc. Quite frankly, your hardware store, your lumber, that could end up in one of my presentations because that's a classic example of somebody not realizing completely what happens to the handoff. Somebody writes that on a piece of paper, and then somebody else is left doing something. We would refer to that in process as a wing-to-wing review, and that is a lot of times people develop processes within their department, but then it goes into another department and they kind of leave it. And so you want to make sure that you know exactly from the inception of the process until the end, even it crosses over departments. And so that's an important lesson there.
It is.
There are other good questions. I have 10 questions that I talk about. How long I talk about them depends on how long I have. But a big question a lot of times is why. Why is not always a good question because why a lot of times does not provoke thought. The question why provokes defensiveness. People have a tendency to want to defend when they're saying, why did that happen? One of the things that I suggest that people do in a situation like that, if there has been some type of issue that has happened and people are talking about it, he said, she said, well, blah, blah, you can stop it all by just saying, okay, here's the question. How do we ensure that this never happens again? How do we ensure that this is not a problem in the future? And then they will start explaining how they can ensure that. When they do, they will tell you why it happened. Mm-hmm. All right, you don't have to ask why.
That's clever.
You don't have to ask why. You have to ask how, which is active, which is based on the future, which is solving the problem. Why can be perceived as we're trying to pin blame. We want to pin blame. That's not the plan. What we want to do is we want to fix this problem, and we want to ensure that it never happens again.
Right.
So are some of the questions that I use all the time. As far as goal setting, the idea of establishing a goal or whatever, there are 3 questions there. Where are we? Where do we want to go? How do we get there? Those are the framing questions, if you will. You got to ask both where are we and where do we want to go. An example that I like to use is you call up a travel agent. Travel agent answers the phone, Bob's travel agency. Say, hi, Bob, I want to go on a trip. He says, well, that's what I do. Where do you want to go? And then you say, I want to go someplace where I will be happy. And he says, I have no idea what that means. I want to go someplace where it is warm. All right, I've eliminated a few places. I'm still not clear on where you want to go. I want to go to Miami, Florida. Got it. Now I know exactly where you want to go. Next question, where are you? You know, it doesn't matter. Just get me to Miami, Florida. That's what I need you to do. Actually, it's very important that I know where you are right now. Because right now, the only thing I know for sure is you are not in Miami, because that's where you want to go. I need to know where you are right now. They say, I am in St. Louis, Missouri. Got it. Where you are is St. Louis. Where you want to go is Miami. Now, how do we get there? This is great. How we get there is you take a Southwest flight. You'll be there in no time at all. And the person says, no, I don't fly planes. Okay, that is not a problem. What we will do, we will put you on a bus. I don't take buses. Not a problem. The point is that if you know where you are and where you want to go, there's a lot of different ways to get there.
True.
Because in a business, if you're real clear on what your objective is and you know where you are right now, so you try something and it doesn't work, that's fine. The objective hasn't changed. You're just going to change your approach to how you get there. And once people learn to start framing the question so that they understand exactly what's going on. Sometimes I do if I facilitate board meetings or strategy sessions. I will ask, so where are we trying to go here? And then somebody says, we want to be profitable. So, okay, I need more information. It's got to be specific. And then ask, well, where are we right now? Well, we all know where we are. Well, let's talk. And you know what? They find out they don't. A lot of business, the gurus, Jennings, Drucker, et cetera, they say 60 to 80% of all business problems are communication related. People think they're communicating and they're not. Why? Because people don't understand exactly what the other people are saying. And you reach a certain age and you're a little bit embarrassed if you don't know. And I say it, and I'll admit that I'm exaggerating a little bit. I tell the people that. But I'm saying it will change your life if you start asking the question, what does that mean? When a company says, well, we've decided we want to have an ROE, a return on equity of 15%, what does that mean? And then we go, well, what does that mean? Just constantly, so everybody is very clear on where this company is headed. And so that there's no confusion about that. And that's a big part of it.
That's awesome. That is just really awesome. Well, Cary, how can people learn more about you if they want to get some more information or hear you speak?
Sure. The website is the best at cp1consulting.com. That's the best way. Or they can email me at cphillips@cp1consulting.com. We do. I work with different people throughout the year. We do work from Washington to Florida to Canada, all over the place. We stay pretty busy, but we always love having new companies to work with.
Okay. Well, Steve, thank you so much for sharing that information. That was great information. There's two things that really stuck out at me. Ask where we are and where we want to go. And the way there can change, but the objective is the same. And
Absolutely.
And the other one, what does that mean? I'm going to think about that a lot today.
Well, good.
Okay. Well, Cary, thank you again so much. That was fascinating.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.